Welcome to the Rise Above Project. I'm your host, Joe Perroni. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, champion bodybuilder, and I've been a personal trainer for about 30 years. This podcast is about helping people with their emotional, spiritual, and physical fitness. I value strength, toughness, and truth. I despise complacency, the victim mentality, and following the herd. If you find my work to be valuable, please subscribe to my channel and tell a friend. Today, I want to talk about the causes of low self-esteem. The importance of self-esteem is highly debated by psychologists, as is the efficacy of the self-esteem movement, which became popular in the 1980s. I will offer my critique in future shows, but for today, I will only offer my opinion and evidence on the causes of low self-esteem. First, let's define self-esteem so we're all on the same page, because there's two parts to self-esteem. Number one, high self-esteem is predicated on an individual's positive assessment of his or her competence and self-worth, categorically and in totality. This means that a person with authentic self-esteem can judge their competence in one area to be less than desirable, but still finds themselves to be a worthy human being. And here's an example. I know that I don't have any ability to fly a plane at this point in my life, so I am perfectly comfortable to buy an airline ticket to get me to and from New York. And yet, I don't think it reflects badly on me as a person overall, because my talents lie elsewhere, and I'm comfortable with that. This is also a transferable skill. A person with healthy self-esteem will have an increased ability to accept the flaws in others, but be able to care and love them anyway, which is to say they have the ability to love unconditionally. To attain self-worth, one must live up to his or her own standards and values. A person's competency emanates from the conviction that one is capable of producing desired results on a regular basis, and that our minds and bodies are capable of rightful action, and the understanding that failure is not permanent and just serves as a necessary corrective experience toward success. Self-esteem is difficult to measure in a clinical setting, and this is because it's measured by self-report, and it's bolstered by an individual's assessment of how they are measuring up to their own standards. So this means that depending on a person's values, standards, and environment, it is possible that a person who makes a Rolex watch, a person who sells a Rolex watch, a person who then buys a Rolex watch, and then a person who steals the same Rolex watch, a person who destroys the Rolex watch, and then a person can fix the Rolex watch, they can all report an increase in self-esteem. It depends on what your values are. Number two, the second aspect of self-esteem is that the individual believes they are deserving of happiness and that they can accept the love that is given to them. Many celebrity suicides are the result of someone who becomes extremely rich and famous, but they don't feel they deserve it. The more fame they attain, the more pain they feel. Despite popular belief, success and achievement is, at best, only a temporary panacea for low self-worth. People who are extremely successful, they tend to be perfectionists, controlling, and they typically are insecure, which does not correlate to high self-esteem. However, if they are advocating for themselves because they believe they are worthy of happiness and can accept love from others, then they are exhibiting some self-esteem traits. Low self-esteem can predict difficulty in almost every area of life. People with low self-esteem have difficulty reaching their full potential because they don't have the confidence to fully pursue careers, education, or relationships. They are much more likely to accept poor treatment from others and are more likely to participate in negative behaviors to fit in with the crowd. The National Association for Self-Esteem has linked low self-esteem with criminal behavior, body image issues, drug addiction, teen pregnancy, and poor academic performance. If you are an introvert, you have a higher risk for having low self-esteem. Not because anything is wrong with you, but because living in an extroverted world may make you feel less than. It would be difficult to envision anyone who judges themselves to be inferior or inconsequential to be equipped in any way to have a meaningful, fulfilling existence. Psychologist and founder of reality therapy, William Glasser, has stated that the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which is a listing of all billable personality and mood disorders, he said it actually wouldn't even exist if people had adequate self-esteem. In order to find the remedy for low self-esteem, we must realize that low self-esteem in and of itself is not a cause. It is a symptom arising from early childhood trauma, a superficial society, and the cultural deification of wealth by any means. As such, it can't be fixed by telling adults just to look in the mirror and repeat positive affirmations to themselves. Superficial attempts and spiritual bypasses never work. We must have the courage to venture deeper and take a look at the proverbial scene of the crime. Erik Erikson's 8-stage psychosocial theory of development, which considers the impact of caregivers and society on personality development throughout the lifespan, is an excellent place to start. The trust versus mistrust stage is from birth to 18 months old. This is when the child is naked, needy, and 100% dependent upon its caregivers. The main emphasis is on the caregiver's ability to nurture and care for the baby to make them feel loved, safe, and secure. To ensure proper development, the caregivers must maintain appropriate, positive visual contact and be liberal with physical attention. If the child's needs are ignored or unmet, they begin to mistrust their caregivers, their world, and they don't trust that they have a place in this world. The seeds have been sown for worthlessness, insecurity, and hopelessness. If the caregivers are, as pediatrician and psychoanalyst Dr. Winnicott says, good enough, the baby learns to be optimistic, confident, and trust others and their place in the world. Autonomy versus shame and doubt is the second stage and takes place between 18 months and 3 years old. If the child is cared for properly, by being given the chance to explore, take appropriate risks, and make mistakes, the child will learn to accept new challenges and build self-esteem. If the child is raised to fear trying new skills or to be afraid of failing by overly strict authoritarian parenting or by helicopter parenting, they will experience shame, self-doubt, and low self-esteem when having difficulty trying to learn new skills. They will also doubt their ability to be successful, which will cause them to shrink from challenges, responsibilities, and exploring their full potential as a human being. Initiative versus guilt is the third stage and takes place between 3 and 6 years old. At this stage, children attempt to assert control over their world by achieving goals and interacting with others. If the parents allow the child to explore within limits and support the child's choices, the child will gain self-confidence and develop ambition. If the child's initiative is stifled by ineffective parenting, the child may feel guilty for following their desires and turn out to be more of a follower than a leader. Most mental health clinicians would agree that a child's personality is essentially formed by 6 years old. From birth, children look to their caregivers and environment as a mirror for feedback to determine their worthiness. If a child is told and shown they are loved, they will believe they are lovable. If they are told and shown they are important, they will believe they are important. Uninvolved, abusive, stressed, or overindulged parenting will cause damage to a developing child's self-esteem. If a child is abused, they may feel that the abuse is justified and that they are not worthy of love and respect. This increases the likelihood that they will push away love when they are adults. In a perfect utopian world, people would be intrinsically motivated and internally validated. People would be courageously authentic, and they would not seek the approval of others. In a perfect utopian world, people would be valued more on the content of their character than on the content of their bank account. Self-worth would not be based on net worth. Self-esteem would be based on living to the individual's virtues and values, with no regard for how society reacts. Having others be an influence on self-esteem leaves a person's happiness to be contingent upon the approval of others. Self-esteem becomes social esteem, and people can become pretentious in their pursuit of gaining the favor of a fickle society. It seems like it would be a productive, realistic goal to go through life without being burdened by the concerns or judgment of others. However, reality is a different story. Human beings are social animals, wired for connection and empathy for others. Our comfort with others is directly related to how comfortable and engaged they are with us. It is in our genetics to care about what our peers think. Humans are collectivist, communal creatures by nature, and our ability to fit in, be accepted, and to avoid being ostracized is what kept our ancestors alive. Sociometer theory is a theoretical perspective introduced by Mark Leary, in which self-esteem is measured by a person's effectiveness in social situations and interactions that monitor acceptance and rejection from others. If a person is deemed to have higher relational value, they will have more self-esteem. It is safe to say there are two kinds of people in this world. There are those who fear rejection and abandonment, and those who are in denial of their fear of rejection and abandonment. Ongoing isolation is destructive to a human being at any stage of the lifespan. The inability to fit in with society, measure up to society standards, or being at the lower end of the hierarchical structure is a significant cause of low self-esteem. A 2015 study by Ben Fell and Miles Houston found that many who live in poverty or work in deprived areas experience low self-esteem and self-hatred for their personal failures. As a society, we have been told that lack of money is due to a lack of personal responsibility and laziness. This stereotype, as well as negative societal treatment, adds to the guilt and shame of the economically disadvantaged. Abraham Maslow created the hierarchy of needs theory, which was proposed in his 1943 paper entitled A Theory of Human Motivation. Maslow suggests that basic or deficiency needs at the lower end of the hierarchy must be met before self-esteem needs can be met. Physiological needs, which include food, water, and sleep, safety needs, which include shelter and a reasonable expectation to keep that shelter, and loving and belonging needs all have to be met before a person can attain self-esteem. Fair enough, but this is much more difficult than it appears. Currently, 80% of families live paycheck to paycheck. 40% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency expense. Only 6% of children born to parents in the lowest tax bracket can move up to the top tax bracket. The Center for American Progress report indicates the number one predictor of economic mobility in the United States is the zip code you are born into. It's also interesting to note that 60% of the wealth in the United States is inherited, which essentially creates affirmative action for the rich. Reality tells us that in a competitive, capitalistic country where the odds are stacked against those on the lower end of the hierarchy, self-esteem may always be an issue. In a capitalistic country, your worth and value is whatever the market says it is. This can cause self-esteem issues because there are drug dealers who make more money than teachers, and scantily clad twerkers who can't hold a note potentially have more buying power, social capital, and value than a violinist who graduated from Juilliard. A preponderance of empirical evidence suggests that economic stress may also be the highest correlation to anxiety and depression, as well as low self-esteem. And yes, there are strategies to combat these issues, but that is not the subject for today. However, I do find the quote from Jiddu Krishnamurti to be very noteworthy. Quote, "It is no measure of health to be well-adjusted in a profoundly sick society," unquote. Recent empirical evidence suggests that 90% of men and women are dissatisfied with their bodies in some way. They also report negative emotions and thoughts about their bodies, quote, "when the idea of their body is confronted in social situations or when they are in the presence of attractive people," unquote. Negative body image is correlated with eating disorders, depression, and is a direct result of social media and mass media, which pushes the idea that in order to be beautiful, successful, and desired, you must have a look that is virtually unattainable if you are to remain healthy. In order to achieve a desired appearance or to maintain a desired appearance while aging, many have turned to cosmetic surgeries. According to the annual plastic surgery procedural statistics, there were 17.5 million surgical and minimally invasive cosmetic procedures performed in the United States in 2017. Minimally invasive procedures have increased 200% since the year 2000. It is my professional and personal opinion that our superficial youth-obsessed culture will be enticed to increase self-esteem by spending money that they don't have, spending money they do have, having cosmetic procedures, getting Viagra prescriptions, and believing that a 10-minute Google search is equivalent to the wisdom gained from years of hard-earned experience and living a life of value and virtue. In summary, low self-esteem is caused by an invalidated childhood, physical, emotional, and psychological abuse, negligent, abusive, permissive, or helicopter parenting, negative peers, distressed economic situations, not living up to personal or societal standards, and living in a superficial society that values the wrong priorities. In upcoming shows, I will discuss how to develop true, authentic self-esteem. But for now, thank you for listening. I am Joe Perroni from the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.